When people call Berserk a love story, this isn't what they mean, but they might as well, given how many people believe it to be a fact. From the onset, it's clear that Griffith has a certain fondness for Guts. He immediately takes a liking to the hulking swordsman and personally recruits him into the band of the Falcon. Griffith places more implicit trust in Guts, the latest member of his party, than tenured soldiers who have been in his service for years. He draws up battle plans to include Guts' unpredictable nature, and even goes out of his way to save the guy from a literal monster like Zod. Many in the Berserk fandom believe these acts, and many others, to mean Griffith was in love with Guts. But is that true? Was Griffith actually in love with the guy he ended up blaming all of his personal shortcomings on? Did he do what he did to Guts and Casca out of a sick, twisted sense of jealousy? That's exactly what we're here to investigate.
Hello everyone. So now it is time for my much anticipated video about Guts and Griffith's relationship. If you want to see that full video where I got that clip from, here you go. Here you go. Please go and watch this guy's Berserk content and give him a subscribe, because he's actually really good at breaking down things in the story. Some things people may not understand, or some things people might want expansion on. So yeah, that's where I got that clip. And yeah, this video was really good. Go and check it out when you get the chance. Now, when it comes to Guts and Griffith, their dynamic to me is very black and white, contrary to popular belief with their relationship. Now, in the beginning, when we first meet Guts, he actually kills Griffith's best soldier, the 30-man killer Pazuzu. He actually watches this go down, doesn't even care that his soldier died, but he's like, oh, I see your replacement. That right there tells me that Griffith cares about one thing, and that is power. And that makes sense because that's what he needs to achieve his dream. So it makes sense that power would be on his mind. And when it came to Pazuzu's falling, he didn't really sit there and mourn him. But we can see that there's differences in his character even throughout the series. In the flashback with Casca, when he's upset about the little boy dying and places the toy soldier on him, he was actually really upset about that. Then he went, and we all know what happened with that king, but the next day he very clearly is upset about what happened. But in order to repress it, he resorts to something to make the feeling go away. This prompts Casca to run into the water to stop him, because of course she's watching someone she really cares about do something harmful to themselves, and she didn't want that. So how he was when Casca first met him versus who he was becoming and what he was becoming by the time he met Guts, I believe plays a very integral part in their relationship. You can see the changes in Griffith from who he was to who he used to be to who he's turning into to what he's definitely going to end up being. So when it comes to Guts, when he says, oh, you belong to me, he meant that in the sense of like, this pair of scissors that I paid for belongs to me. He didn't mean that in a romantic sense, contrary to what the fan base wants you to believe. Even some of my best friends think that Griffith really was in love with Guts. No, he was not. I'm just going to debunk that right now. When it came to their relationship, it was literally down to the fact that he saw Guts as a useful weapon and a good soldier. He even said that to him when he went back to rescue him when he got caught up in that raid. He's like, oh, I didn't want to lose such a good soldier right away. Like, you're a great soldier. And then when it came to the incident with fighting the massive monster, he saved Guts because at that point, Guts had definitely shown that he was a good weapon. It's just like one of my best kitchen knives. I would hate for something to happen to that one. There are so many others where I wouldn't really bat an eye at it, but my favorite Japanese grade kitchen knife, I would be really upset if something happened to it. That's pretty much their relationship. And when it comes down to Griffith trying to keep Guts from leaving the Band of the Hawk, it's because Griffith is by nature a possessive person, but that doesn't mean he was into him. The way he saw it was Guts was his weapon. And the thing of it is, I would think that someone like Griffith would probably be concerned if he decided to fight for another side or against him, or if rumor got out that he lost one of his best soldiers, how he would be looked at and how he'd be viewed. It was always about his power and his dream. It wasn't about affections towards Guts. Now, I will say he did actually consider Guts a friend, and that was the one thing he really couldn't understand. Griffith lacked emotional intelligence, and it happened because of his plain refusal to feel his feelings and to repress them in a very harmful way. He lost any ability to feel anything when it came to himself, but then that resulted in him not being able to really feel much of anything when it came to others. And we're going to talk about another character in this. Poor Charlotte. I'm very concerned for her. I do not think her future is going to end well. I do not, because Griffith doesn't even fundamentally love Charlotte. And, despite sneaking into her room, that was just to secure a position. He really only likes her for her status. And when it comes to Casca and his relationship, he only saw a prospect of being okay with that when his dream would be out of his reach and he just accept his limitations. So in my mind, that doesn't actually show that he cared about Casca. That showed that Casca was good enough to him would be good enough. Because, listen, you go from looking like this to looking like this, being picky ain't exactly an option. I'm just saying. So to me, with that, he's like, oh, I suppose I could be okay with this. That was settling. Casca would have been a settled thing for him. That's the thing. She would have been deemed good enough for him to get into a relationship with, because at that point he would assume the princess didn't want him. But the funny thing about Charlotte is she actually does fundamentally love Griffith. She really does care about him. She takes an arrow for him. She commits treason. She's willing to give up her whole life. The problem is, I feel so bad for this girl, because if she only knew that if it wasn't for her position, he wouldn't give a rat's ass about her, and that if she left everything for him, he wouldn't have given a fuck. Poor girl. That's all I can say. Griffith seems to actually lack the ability to achieve close bonds. And I do think that that's what made him very jealous and angry with Guts, because Guts essentially, in his mind, was responsible for everything that happened to him, because something he perceived to be his possession wrestled its way away from him and went about, their own life. And the funny thing is, he was only following Griffith's advice. And Griffith lacks emotional intelligence to the point where when he does hear about what happened and he hears about the kid, he's just smirking. And he pays no mind about, maybe Guts might need something, because he sent him on that and he called him friend. And then Guts hears that whole speech to the princess, so that had to really hurt. Griffith lacks the ability to understand people's emotions, and he sees putting effort into that as a weakness, as we saw by his reaction of being so upset over that kid, over that boy. And he didn't want to feel those things or think about those things, so he just didn't. The problem is, it worked way too well to the point where he couldn't really understand a lot of things around him when it came to people's feelings. So what he did to Guts and Casca was a culmination of jealousy, resentment, anger, and literally blaming everybody but himself for his own downfall. Because if he'd just taken a moment to be like, Guts, let me talk to you, please. Before you go, can we please talk? Listen, you are an imperative part to, the Band of the Hawk. And maybe at least try to level with Guts instead of trying to use brute force, because Griffith has stated, I rather enjoy settling things by force. But that doesn't always work. And that was the first time something didn't work out for Griffith. The reason he did what he did to Guts and Casca was a dominance and a power show. And when it comes to his intimate life, Griffith, I do think is, he's ace. I don't think he even really cares about that. Now, Forney was like, oh, well, he's ace, but he's still, yeah, that it can still happen. Someone can be capable of doing it without really having an interest in it. And I definitely feel as though what he culminated, those events happening and what he did to Casca in front of Guts, I do believe he was doing that to make Guts feel powerless, which he did. And the fact that Guts and Casca had grown so much without him was unacceptable for Griffith. Do I believe Griffith was already a fundamentally evil person? No, but I do believe his ambition overrode any other senses that would have been of use to him in this situation. Guts and Griffith were not a romantic interest, contrary to all the things you will see if you Google them. Be careful, just so you know, you're going to see a lot of stuff. But contrary to what the fan base thinks and has been consistently saying for years, it wasn't a love relationship. It was a literal ownership thing for Griffith. He viewed Guts as his tool to be used and disposed of as he saw fit. He didn't get to decide when he left or if he left. Griffith decided all that because he was always in control and was used to being in control. Griffith didn't love Guts. He loved the power that Guts gave him. And even if he thought of Guts as a friend, which I do feel as though he did, he lacked the fundamental emotional intelligence to actually have a friendship. That's my opinion on their relationship. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.